Well, hey guys, it's Krista Watson here from Christa Quilts, and on this week's video, I'm super excited to give you a show report about my time that I spent at the American Quilter Society's show in Paducah, Kentucky, affectionately known as AQS Quilt Week. So this show is very special to me. It's the first time I've ever taught at the show, and the company AQS, they actually do several shows throughout the United States every year. However, Paducah, Kentucky is kind of their signature show, and it's kind of a big deal. So a little history background is that once I started getting my work out there in public around 2013, 2014, 2015, and started writing books and becoming a national teacher, I also was entering my quilts into national award shows. And I have this very special quilt called Facets, which was actually from my very first book that I wrote called Machine Quilting with Style. I entered it into Paducah and it won a second place ribbon. I was so thrilled. It was in the modern category, which is near and dear to my heart. It was so thrilling because not only was I so excited to have this quilt that I had designed in my first book, where I actually teach you how to make the whole quilt from start to finish, including the machine quilting, but to get that award was just a huge pat on my back. Now earlier I had actually entered this show a previous time the year before when they had first opened up the modern category to this show, and for that quilt I entered my quilt called Charming Chevrons. This is also special because this is the first commercial pattern that I ever came out with many years ago, and it's still one of my best sellers. In fact, I've made this quilt several times in different fabrics, now in my own fabrics since I designed, but my Charming Chevrons quilt was also entered into Paducah and it had won a third place ribbon. So between getting 2 ribbons on my quilts, it was amazing. But you know what? I don't enter my quilts into shows to get ribbons. I enter them because I think it's just a whole lot of fun. And occasionally when I snag a ribbon, that's just like icing on the cake. So anyway, that's just a little bit of the background to this amazing show. And ever since that time several years ago, I've always wanted to come back and see the show in person for myself, become a teacher, and just have an enjoyable time. Well, that chance came this year, which happens to be 2024. So if you're watching this in the future, it's like a blast from the past. If it's current, you know, that's kind of fun too. But anyway, it was such an amazing time. So sit back, relax, watch this video. I'm going to kind of give you some of the highlights of this show, and it's one that I will definitely return to, and hopefully you'll be able to come to it as well. So I arrived in the tiny town of Paducah on a small little airplane, and there were quilt designs everywhere. There were inspirational tiles. It was a really great way to kick off the event. I started off with my signature lecture, How Do I Quilt It? And it was so fun to see so many enthusiastic students excited to see what I had to share. I taught a variety of classes, including my signature walking foot quilting workshops, free motion quilting workshops, and the students just had a really great time. We learned techniques from my books, and the fun thing about teaching is that every single time I teach, it's a different class, even though it's the same basic techniques. So I always tell people, if you take a class from me more than once, it's never the same class twice. So in between teaching several machine quilting workshops over a series of days, I was able to sneak into the show in between classes or after class and check out the amazing quilts. Now, I highly recommend that if you are on social media, you check out American Quilter Society's Instagram, because for every show that they have, they show all the ribbon winners. For me, of course, my favorite category is the modern quilts, and so that's kind of the ones that I spent most time with. So here are some of my favorite modern quilts from that category. I hope you like them. I can't tell you exactly why I love modern quilts. They just really speak to me, and it was really fun checking out some of my favorites. On the last day of the show, I had a couple hours in the afternoon to check out downtown Paducah. Now, this city is so cute and so quaint. There's all kinds of downtown shops for arts and crafts and quilting, and I thought it was really cool that every shop, every storefront window had quilts on display, because they knew that this is Quilt City, USA. Also, while I was there, I had a chance to visit the National Quilt Museum, and I was so inspired that I right then and there decided I would love to have one of my quilts hanging in that museum someday. Also, out on the front lawn, they had a time capsule that they had buried many years ago, just before I actually began my own quilting journey. And I looked at the date and realized, how fun would it be if I actually returned back when they're going to do the opening, which is 50 years later after the fact. So I will be 70 years old when that time capsule is open. So I'm putting it out there right now. If I'm still around, if I'm still involved with quilting, which hopefully I am, I will make a point of it to go back there in my 70th year and be there for that unveiling. I began my quilting journey around the time that they created the time capsule. So how fun would it be to go back 50 years later and my quilting journey would coincide with this? So we'll see. If you're around too, I invite you to join me. I only had a short amount of time to get a couple pictures and videos from the museum, but if you have a chance to visit, I highly recommend it. At the museum, they had several special exhibits to choose from, and they never show their entire collection at any one time. So it's always fun to go and check out and see the latest and greatest. You can see some of my favorites here, and I've included the artist credit on each quilt. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little taste of Paducah. This was just the show seen through my eyes as a teacher and a little bit of time to actually walk the show floor. I know several of my friends were vendors there, and it's just an amazing show. Some people come year after year. Like I said, it was my first visit to Paducah, but I tell you what, it won't be my last. I had such an amazing time teaching for the folks at AQS that I can tell you this show is going to be on my bucket list, and I will continue to teach for AQS. In fact, they have several shows throughout the country, and I will be returning in the future to teach at some of their different shows. If you want to have an idea of where I'm going to be next, either at an AQS show or what my current teaching schedule is, you can go ahead and check that out on my blog at christaquilts.com. Now, if for some reason you're a little bit jealous out there and you're like, oh, I can't ever get to these shows, you know what? I'm happy to come to you. I actually travel all over the United States, coast to coast, even internationally, teaching my machine quilting techniques. So if you're interested, you can shoot me an email, check out the description box for links and all the info, or you can pass on my contact information to the local chair of your quilting group or quilting guild. I tell you what, teaching and meeting with folks face to face is my absolute favorite thing that I do. Oh, and one more thing. If you were curious about the quilt behind me, this is a current work in progress called Positive Direction. There's actually a pattern available for it. And of course, in the future, at some point, you'll probably be able to find a video showing how I made it and how I quilted it. Anyway, I hope to inspire you, whether it's with my teaching or my patterns or just being your quilting friend. I'm here for all of it. Until next time, happy quilting.